Hello.
So you're good for video?
Yes.
Is your mic not working?
No, I don't hear anything.
Testing. Okay, it was working fine for Chris. Video mute. Laptop. Testing. There we go. All right, welcome back. So, while you were on break, did you stop by the visitor area? Did you say hello to the sponsors? Did you tell them thank you for sponsoring B-Sides Augusta? All right, so our next presenter is Mr. David Coursey. I was talking with David earlier today, and he was telling me about this really cool thing that he did. He built this hat that's got a Raspberry Pi built into it. So how cool is that, right? So if you get a chance later today, make sure you corner David about the Raspberry Pi hat and have him describe it. You didn't have to bring it, did you?
No.
You should have. Because then you get an awkward face-to-face thing you were talking about. That'd be really cool. So David's got a great talk, and very excited. David's an awesome guy. So please join me in welcoming Mr. David Coursey.
Well, thanks everybody for coming out to check this out. I know everybody's excited to learn what my one weird trick is. But first, a little bit about me. I am a pen tester every day for a small company called Invisium. I work specifically on applications and application security. And so I see a huge variety of applications every week that range everywhere from, modern JavaScript stacks all the way back to like Access written in 2000 and Struts version 1. I'm a dad. I do a little bit of programming. I like rugby and whiskey, and I shaved off my beard. So I know. My wife made me do it. So my disclaimer right now is that this is more of an entry-level talk. So if you do any pen testing yourself right now, you're going to be bored to death, and I won't be offended if you get up and leave. But if somebody slashes your tires, it was Chris Sanders. So there are no weird tricks involved in this, sadly, but this is something that I want everybody to be able to take back and have the Monday morning value, as they say. So everyone can take back what you learn in here and improve your situation and try and, just make your life a little bit easier. This one, all of these vulnerabilities are extremely dangerous. Not to the systems that they're on, and not to lives, but to me personally, my body, because they are killing me slowly every time I have to write a report on clickjacking, and which is basically every assessment I do. If you do any time on bug bounties or anything like that, everybody submits the clickjacking bounty, because it's on every single application in the world. And I don't know why at this point. When I was looking for demos for this, I just did a search for clickjacking demo in YouTube, and the first result I got was from 2009. And I just kind of cried for a while. So clickjacking is a very simple attack, and it's a layers problem. And the attacker is going to put a layer over usable functionality that says, I'm going to change the way the functionality works. So this is all based around the iframe tag in HTML. Now, hands up if you've written an application in the last decade that used iframes. I got one. Leave. No. So, not very common now. I don't even understand why these protections are not built into the web servers that we use, because this is literally a one-line configuration for everything except for IIS, where nothing is one line. But it is just a couple of clicks, and then you can use it, or you can protect yourself with it with some JavaScript too, which is actually recommended, because depending on browsers and the applications you're doing, you should have both the application or the web server configuration and the JavaScript to protect yourself from this. So I'm going to try and flip over here. I made my sacrifice to the demo gods, and I'm going to show you nothing, apparently. Boom. I made this little application. I've been practicing Golang a lot, so I made this little application just to test this. And it functions, it does what it's supposed to do. So what a clickjacking attack does is it utilizes HTML just to capture this website in an iframe. And I should have set this up already. There's my demo fail. So you're going to put this iframe, put the application. This is literally code that is taking the application that I just showed you and putting it into an iframe and putting a layer controlled by the attacker over the real functionality. And there's lots of different ways to do this, and there's lots of functionality you can do with this. But for my first giveaway for a USB rubber ducky, my question is, who is the target of the attack in this scenario?
The user of the website.
The user of the website. So every time I submit this on a report, management doesn't care because you're not hacking their servers, right? I'll bring it up to you in a minute. It's the users. But I've always been told that, we need to kind of protect these people because they're the ones that have all the data that we're using anyway. A little bit better example of how something like this would work. This is the exact same code, but with all of the functionality turned off. All of the red functionality turned off. Literally the exact same code. So you go to, just put your credentials in, and it takes you somewhere that you're not expecting to go. Now, to get this pulled off, you have to have some interaction with the user, like a phishing email. But I think we can all agree at this point that phishing is almost 100% successful to the general population. Maybe not to you guys. So we're still seeing this on literally every engagement. Let's go back over here. There we go. So, moving on to the next one, and this is another one that's killing me slowly inside, is cookies. Hands up if you like pumpkin spice. No, get out. Yeah. This is again literally just a one-line configuration in your web server. Die. All right, I'm not going to switch back and forth anymore. There we go. So it's a one-line configuration in your web server or in your application. Say if you have specific cookies on specific portions of your application that you want to protect, you can add lines in the controllers, in the code, to make it do whatever you want to do. Now, the demo I was going to show here was a cross-site scripting demo, but I'm not going to flip back and forth anymore. And what it does is, a lot of times we're looking for XSS demos that don't require a lot of strange quoting and stuff like that, and what people typically do is like alert one, but I like to do alert document.cookie because that brings up something that I can actually show to management that says, look, I'm capturing your JSession ID with my cross-site scripting attack because you guys didn't put one tiny little bit of code in your application. I mean, HTTP only and secure is like 20 characters. So this is literally every assessment I do. The next big one is caching. It's another HTTP header that you can control yourself, and this is actually really useful. This is one of two in here that are really useful. It speeds everything up in the web, reduces download times, reduces network traffic, and improves your overall experience. So when developers hear that, naturally, they're just like, cache all the things. But what happens when you do that? Eventually, 6 months later on Pastebin, you realize that you literally did cache all the things, and someone figured that out. So it's very simple to take advantage of this as an attacker in large applications, maybe shared computers, things like that, because you can pull all of that out of any browser cache that normal users use. So this one can be a little bit confusing for developers because some of the terms don't really make sense. Like, what is a pragma? I still don't know, and I wrote this talk. The only thing I could find out was it's short for pragmatic, which really means a lot for caching. And it's heavily browser dependent. So, the organizations have to go back and do some kind of analysis to say, well, what kind of browsers do we see hitting our application? Are we internal only? Is it internet facing? What browsers do we want our users to be hitting the application with? So it requires a little bit of forethought, but it's pretty simple to implement. It's just one more header in your Apache or Nginx IIS config. So moving along quickly, the next one is the HSTS header. This is HTTP strict transport security, and I always have problems saying that. Also known better as SSL stripping. I had a really good image for this one, but Chris Sanders made me take it out. And these tools are widely available. So SSL strip is on Kali Linux, and Burp Suite is the primary tool that I use every single day for testing web applications. It's literally 2 checkboxes, and I can tell your website, I don't want you to be HTTPS anymore. So if I'm sitting at Starbucks and I fire up, one of my man-in-the-middle attacks, I can SSL strip everything that is getting sent across that Wi-Fi network and get all of your super secret sensitive data. So for my second giveaway, which is this has to be someone that's local to the Augusta area, or can come back here on a regular basis. This is a gift certificate for the clubhouse. They've got some pretty cool robotic stuff going on outside. If you haven't checked it out, I recommend it. And the question is, for the HSTS header, what is preload? What does that do? No takers?
Is it your pre-shared key?
Nope.
Pretty much just the links to the site, so they load quicker when you click on them.
Nope. I'll find a different one to give it away. So what preload does is this is basically a contract with the browser vendors. So you can get your HSTS preloaded in the browser list so that your users will always have this header, because it's really important that the first response in that session comes back with the HSTS header, because if it's not there, SSL strip will strip it off and it doesn't matter. So the first response always has to have that on there. Preload is a contract with the browser vendors to go ahead and get that on the list always. The next one is one I just included kind of for fun, because a lot of people don't take this seriously. But as I was doing this talk, it occurred to me that these are all things that everyone talks about being used for troubleshooting. Every assessment I do has these troubleshooting HTTP headers. And I thought, who is this for? Have you ever been troubleshooting an application and said, what version of ASP.NET do we use? I don't know. Check the HTTP headers. Anyone? Hands up? No? So the only one that I can fathom that this is for, now granted, there are cases where you're going to use really specific custom headers in really large applications that really do need troubleshooting, but it's not server and it's not powered by, right? So who is this really for? The people who like CVEs, okay? So if you can find that version and you can go out and figure out exactly what type of software people are running, that only aids attackers. I literally could not come up with another reason for those. So get rid of them. This next one is really fun. It gets kind of a bad reputation as being difficult to work with. Content security policy. And it can be extremely difficult to work with if you have a very large, complex Web 2.0 fancy application that calls in resources and left pads from everywhere. But if you start building the application from the beginning with this enabled, it's probably the greatest thing ever for protecting your application. It's a whitelist, which we all know is good. It ends up with these hairy configurations like this, which really, cleaned up, only comes down to a list of what the resource is and where it's allowed to come from. And including CSP headers is one of the best things you can do as far as protecting from injection attacks on a dynamic application. And thankfully, there's websites you can go to, and if you're just getting into it and just kind of testing out your own applications, put on the report only mode, and it will tell you everything that it would have blocked as you went through your application without actually blocking it. So you're good to go. So this brings me to this little guy. After I developed the title for this, and I was building this, I realized that all I was going to do was stand up here and complain about things. And I wanted to be able to give people something to take back with them to help them out. So I was looking for a project to start learning Golang. And so I developed a little tool I call Skinner because it analyzes your head. I kind of regret that now. So what this does is it's a little tool in Go, so it's super fast, and it's internal network friendly. There are websites already out there that will test your security headers and tell you all your letter grades and stuff like that, but I can't take that into my customer's network and tell them that I'm just going to open up the firewall real quick to do this test. So it's completely private. It doesn't put you on like the top 10 worst of 2015 list. You can feed in a single host, or you can feed in just a list of URLs, and it'll scan and score everything for you, and find all the little things that maybe you missed in your configuration. It's just text reporting right now. I'm working on HTML reporting for the managers, and the next thing I'm working on is a way to randomize user agent strings, because we bump into applications all the time, like mobile apps that expect a certain UA. So it's super simple to use, and I lied. I am going to switch back over to the demo for this one. Maybe. So it's all text-based right now, but the beauty of Golang is that you can compile it cross-platform. If you haven't messed with Go yet, you install the compiler, and then you just say go get and pass it this URL, and it'll pull down all the dependencies, and it'll just work. So this is probably the best public server that I've seen right now. I mean, and that's it. That was how fast the test takes. So it goes through, and the scoring is largely arbitrary at this point based upon how annoyed I was at the specific header that I'm scoring. But over time, it'll get more mature, and we'll add a little bit more functionality. But so you can pass in a list of URLs, and it'll score them all for you, and you can run them again and again, and that's kind of where I got the Skinner box idea, was because you're running it again and again, try to get your score up. And that's about it. It'll tell you all the information leakage headers that you see up there, and you kind of have to decide, because I can't make the decision on what your P3P header is supposed to look like. But hopefully you guys will go check it out and take it back and find some value out of it. And that is all I have for you today. There we go. There's the URL to the Git repo and my Twitter handle. So if you have any questions, I think we're just about out of time, but I'm always around and always willing to talk about this stuff. So hit me up.
Thank you, David. Great talk. So we have a couple of minutes.